scoot in. This is my Twitter. Oh, Robbie, you are completely obscured by this.
Yeah, just move that,
This one?
move the
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
just move the
I thought that was yours. Not bad.
See, mine's right here. Nice and solid.
Fancy. I'll just hunch. Good. It's in between all of us.
That's... Hopefully it all works. Because people are going to start tuning in, waiting for them to call in, but I don't want to anything like that. So yeah, so just like when he picks up, just tell him, just hold on a sec, we're going to do our intro and we're going to introduce you.
Okay.
So. Hopefully he actually calls. I mean, he said he would.
Look at that hamburger, man. Brings you back. First, I'll apologize because I thought, hey, I'm gonna get an everything bagel, and then I was like, I'm gonna be in close quarters with people, so I apologize ahead of time. If you can tell that I ate
I'm
everything
behind you.
bagel.
I'm good. I'm downstream. Or I'm not downstream, I should say.
Oh, might take a while.
Oh, did he say something?
No. I'm waiting for
Didn't
that.
say anything.
I mean, he knows to call at 1.
Oh, like when I had to call Orion at 1, I called him at 1:15. I was like... Speaking of that, check out my article on the Daily Wildcat about Orion Olsen, the new captain of Arizona Hockey. My viewers are great. All one. I mean, I've
Nice.
actually none, but got 97 subscribers.
Solid.
So, Robbie, do you want to introduce yourself to my YouTube following?
What do you want me to say?
Say who you are.
Hey guys, my name is Robbie. I'm the sports director at Camp Student Radio. I freaking love hockey, like a lot. I'm from San Jose, California, so you can imagine where my loyalty lies.
It's really not. Ask him how he feels about Marlowe is really how it goes.
Tears.
And Zach, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Want to introduce yourself to my YouTube following?
Hello, YouTube following. My name is Zach.
Camp Radio. Hi there. We're just going to hold on a second. We are going to do our intro and then we'll get you right on air. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh. Did you go all the way down?
Yeah, it's off.
What?
Ask him to call back. That's my bad then.
Is there a hold button on there?
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Because every time in the videos they were like, oh, just hang up, man.
I can't see it. I can't tell if there's a home button or maybe like I can't tell.
Yeah, it's hold right there.
I don't know how to. I'm gonna sound really millennial. But
There
I
you
don't
go.
know how to use that.
Camp Radio again? Hi, sorry about that. So we will just do our intro and have you right on.
Just
Right.
put it down. Hello everyone, good afternoon and happy Thursday. You are listening to Inside the Glass with Rob Leano and Rachel Houston, live on KAMP, Camp Student Radio, AM 1570. streaming online at camp.arizona.edu, and on YouTube Live at Miracho on Ice, and on Facebook Live at Rob Leonio 1. This is the only radio show at the University of Arizona that provides you the latest and greatest news surrounding the greatest sport on this planet, and that is hockey. We are now just weeks away from the beginning of hockey season, and we decided it'd be a good idea to bring in some special guests to help us get ready for these seasons. So joining us via phone today is Media Director of the University of Arizona Wildcat Hockey Team, Tucson Roadrunners color commentator, and columnist for the Arizona Daily Star. He goes by the nickname the AZ Puckman. His name is Timothy Gasson. Thank you for joining us today, Tim.
Hey, Rob. Hi, Rachel. Hello, everybody. And you're right, Rob. Hockey is the greatest sport on earth.
All right, so Tim, once again, thanks for joining us very much here on Inside the Glass. So first, we want to talk to you about the Tucson Roadrunners. Their season is coming up. It's going to be their second season. And so, personally, what is your opinion on this upcoming season for the Roadrunners?
Last year, of course, as you said, was the inaugural season for the Roadrunners, and a lot of people weren't quite sure what Tucson was going to think about that team. Tucson hasn't had a professional hockey team for 20 years, and the Tucson community really got on board with the Roadrunners very quickly. They had a great first half of the season, faded in the second half of the season. So now the big question is, now that Tucson knows what pro hockey is and is going to support pro hockey, what kind of team are the Roadrunners actually going to put out on the ice? And training camp is just about underway. Of course, the Roadrunners are the farm team of the Arizona Coyotes, so a lot of the Roadrunner players right now are in camp with the Coyotes as they decide who gets sent to their minor league team in Tucson and who stays up in Glendale.
So, given that, do you have any particular ideas of who do you think is going to make the Roadrunners roster, and who do you think is going to be possibly their leading scorer? Because we lost Chris Mueller over the summer, so who do you think it might pick up for his role and possibly assume captaincy as well?
Yeah, this is the fascinating thing about following an American Hockey League team. You know, the AHL is the top minor league in the United States, just below the NHL level, and that means that AHL teams are used as developmental teams, meaning players go up and down to the majors and back to the minors until they're ready to stay one place or the other. And as you said, the roster is going to be almost completely different from last year, and that's how it is with most AHL teams. Because the Coyotes are still struggling to get back into the playoff hunt, they've had to bring up younger kids up to the majors a little bit faster than perhaps other teams would have with their young talent. And that means they took a lot of talent from the Tucson Roadrunners this past year. So it's going to be fascinating. I'm going to be fascinated to see what that initial roster of the Roadrunners for this season actually looks like, to see, who's left. There's going to be a few folks left, but I'm fascinated to see how many I'm going to say our guys, our Tucson guys, that end up in Glendale for the NHL season.
So personally, being a Roadrunners fan and season ticket holder myself, I've definitely looked into it, and I felt definitely it was kind of awful in Tucson when Christian Fischer left the team and went up to Arizona. But it was really great to actually see him in the NHL and perform at such a high level. Have you seen him in camp, and just based on what you saw last season, how do you think he's going to match up? Is he going to make it to the NHL? How is he going to do?
He will make it to the NHL. He's definitely an NHL caliber player. And so you're mentioning, as a Roadrunners fan yourself, this is a challenge when you follow an AHL team. You get attached to guys. You like to see them play. They become your favorite players, and then suddenly, on any given day, they're just gone. They're up to the NHL. And there were, I think, 6 or 8 Roadrunners who got the call up last year. Some of them stayed once they went up. Others went back and down literally for one game at a time. And so as a fan here in Tucson, we really don't know who's going to be in the roster. And, we have players also coming up from the ECHL, which is a minor league below the AHL level. So we had players coming up from the minor leagues. We had players going up to the National Hockey League. And then as a season ticket holder, you come and you wonder, wow, who's in the roster tonight? And that's the same with every AHL team. And that's taken me a little bit of a while to adjust to that mentality. And I've talked to other hockey fans here in Tucson, and it can be a difficult thing because you get your favorite player, and if he becomes your favorite player, it's probably because when he's one of the best players, which means he's not going to be in Tucson that long.
Yeah, I absolutely relate to that. I actually became a big fan of Hunter Fegis last season, and I got his signed jersey, game-worn jersey, at a U of A auction for that, and he actually was sent down to the ECHL not long after. So I absolutely understand what you're saying. And do you think that there's any, I understand you said that there are players like you're not sure who's going to be on the roster, but is there somebody you say that the Roadrunners have a chance of having on their roster and they need? Like, let's say, for instance, maybe like Dylan Strome doesn't make the Coyotes roster, or maybe, is Tyler Gaudette going to come back? Do you have sort of like a pick that you'd like to see on the Roadrunners and that you think they really need to be successful?
Well, I'll tell you, Kyle Wood, who was rookie defenseman for the Roadrunners last year, big defenseman, was an AHL All-Star last year. He is going to have a long NHL career, and it's just now a matter of how soon will that be. When you have a team like, I was talking to the Coyotes staff about this, and you can be tempted when you're trying to get back to playoff contention like the Coyotes are, to bring some of the young guys up a little bit too soon. And I wonder if Kyle Wood is one of those guys who they're going to bring up maybe a little too soon. He needs more AHL conditioning as a Roadrunner. He should spend most, if not the entire season in Tucson. But he's a guy that I wonder, with so many roster changes going on at the Coyotes, if he's a guy who doesn't get a real look up there in that organization.
I'm glad you brought up Kyle Wood and the defensive core on the Roadrunners, because I noticed towards the end of the season there was a lot of defensive lapses, and we lost a lot of people, or the Roadrunners lost a lot of people on defense, including like Jared Tenorti, Jamie McBain, guys who I think were really the veteran leaders. What do you think about like the core that was there and are probably going to be there next year for the Roadrunners? What do you think about them, and how do you think overall they're going to just act defensively wise?
Jamie McBain was just a joy to watch. As a fan, he's a joy to watch. As a coach, I can imagine that you almost close your eyes every time the puck went near him, because his style of play was a rushing defenseman. If the puck was near him, he was gone. And it turns into some great chances offensively, but it created holes in the back end, and they gave up a lot of goals that way. And that's what his career was like when he was an NHLer as well. But in the room, as a leader, he was so valuable as well. So Jimmy McBain was a big portion of I think what was good about the defense for Tucson last year. Kyle Wood said that he really helped him learn what it takes to be a professional. And I think on the blue line at the AHL level, this is the hardest thing to develop continuity with because of how the roster fluctuates. So I'm not surprised that Tucson at times last year really looked defensively deficient, and in that last third of the season especially, as other teams really showed their strength, that was a weakness for Tucson. And again, I have to wait until training camp opens and I really see who they're going to have there. Tryouts for U of A hockey just started yesterday, and there's so many new faces there. And yesterday, I was just able to see guys for the first time and what they look like on skates, because ice is just back at the TCC. So a lot of these next couple of weeks are going to be determined very quickly.
All right, Tim. So we're actually now going to move on to the talk about the U of A hockey team. Lots of new guys on this team as well. Lots of guys also left. Last week, we found out that the Wildcats have named Orion Olsen as their captain. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, they picked the absolute best guy. Orion Olsen, first of all, is a fine hockey player, and he's a really good kid. And as we look for leadership for this team, and as you said, there's a lot of new faces, the team is going to be about half new guys, or first-year Wildcats at least. And we need some good veteran leadership, and Orion Olson is the kind of guy who leads by example. He's a very hard worker, and just how he handles himself. He's a very mature athlete and student, and he represents the program really, really well. So I think that's a great pick. You know, Coach Berman really wanted to establish early a new culture for this team, a really team-oriented culture. And so that's why even before tryouts started, he named Orion Olson the captain. It's an unusual move to do that so early before even the entire roster has been determined. But I think it's a smart one because he's already showing his leadership.
And going back to last year, you know, Arizona didn't really have necessarily their best season, although they had a lot of highs, a lot of lows, but the way they ended the season, you know, one of the most emotional probably ends to a season for an Arizona team. When they, on sweeping ASU, they didn't make the national tournament, but what are your thoughts on probably what are they going to use from then going into the season now?
Well, Rob, that's a really good observation. Last year, there was a lot of talent on that team, and sometimes they looked like a top-5 team. They beat eventual ACHA national champion Central Oklahoma, and then they turn around and drop a game that there's no way they should have dropped. So they were completely up and down. As you say, the last weekend of the season, they knew they had to sweep that series to make the national tournament. They won the Friday game in overtime. I was on the bench for that game, and I can't tell you the kind of emotion that came from that. And then Saturday, they beat ASU in a shootout after an overtime period. And you know, I've been following U of A hockey for more than 30 years, and those two moments are in the top 10, maybe top 5 of the entire experience of University of Arizona hockey for me. As you said, they were so emotional. And, you know, there was a time back before I think you and Rachel were born when ASU hadn't beaten U of A, and I think we had the record up to like 58 games in a row. Well, in the last 10 years, U of A hasn't beaten ASU more than once or twice, and they really turned the tables last year. So that really is a battle cry for this year. That really, really, really is a point of emphasis for this team. ASU is everything. You want to go to the national tournament, you got to beat ASU, and they play ASU the second home game of this year on Saturday, September 30th, I think it is.
Yes, it is, and I'm sure after what ASU witnessed and went through last year, I'm sure they're going to come back and be pretty aggressive about it. And going off of that, I personally noticed last season that the Wildcats had more of an aggressive style of play. I would almost compare them more to the Kings of the NHL and sort of in their prime where they were really skilled offensively, but they could also rough you up and really get under your skin. Did you notice that about the team, or is there like another style, and do you think that's like a strength or a weakness of theirs?
You know, that's a really good observation, Rachel. I was surprised when I came back to U of A hockey last year as the media director, just how large that hockey team was. In my era before when I was with the team, players at the ACHA level were probably 5'7", 5'8", 165 pounds. And I met the guys last year and was looking at the roster, and more than half of the roster was over 6 feet tall and over 210 pounds. That's a really, really large college hockey team. And as you said, they played a really aggressive style. They had gritty guys who would punish the other team, but then again, sometimes would lack team cohesiveness on defense, which is something that at this level of hockey is usually the deficiency. You either don't have quality goaltending or you don't have enough effort on the defensive end. That's not just defensemen. You know, your forwards have to play defense too. And I know that that's going to be a point of emphasis for Coach Berman in this team to get more of a team identity on defense. They're loaded in goal. They've got 3 really good goaltenders. So a lot of teams at this level don't have one quality goaltender. Arizona has three. So now it's all about, do the guys play well in front of the goaltenders and keep the puck out of the net? And I think that's one of the reasons why last year the U of A was up so high and then down so low. They weren't consistent on the defensive end.
Personally, I find it almost odd that I understand, of course, they had the defensive lapses and everything and their goaltending, which made them have those really low lows, but given the leadership group that they had last season, and they had both Toppy and John Hogan, and those are really, those are guys are sort of almost the face of the team, you would say. And how do you think the team is going to adjust after losing those kind of guys, and they sort of have to find their identity again because they sort of identified with those guys. How do you think that's working out, and where do you see them going?
Well, you're absolutely right. And for people who don't know, Toppy Hogan was the top scorer on the team. He was All-American and MVP of the team last year. A physical beast, a monster. And he's still at the University of Arizona, but now he's on the varsity golf team. So he quit hockey. He took a lot of abuse last year physically on the ice. He was the target. He was the number one target for other teams, of course, because he was Arizona's most visible player. And he's retired from hockey to pursue a goal of playing pro golf, and he's actually on the varsity golf team. That's going to be a huge loss. I don't know. In my 30 years of watching Arizona hockey, he's definitely one of the 5 best players ever to play for the U of A. You don't just replace a guy like that. The news is better about John Hogan. Yes, his eligibility is up, but he's an assistant coach on this team, so we still have a Hogan in the locker room. And I was watching him run practice in tryouts yesterday, and he's going to be really effective as an assistant coach as he learns how to coach these guys. So that's good news, but as you say, yeah, they're going to have to re-identify themselves. This happens more in college than it does on the pro level. Every year you really, really have a different team with a completely different character. And Arizona had a lot of talent last year, but the team play was lacking. It'll be interesting to see this year, maybe, about the talent level that they have, but if they play a more consistent team game.
Now, I'm glad that earlier you talked about Arizona having 3 really solid goaltenders. Which of those goaltenders do you personally think has the best shot, or just the one that you really like so far?
Well, we are so early. That was just the first day of tryouts yesterday. They haven't even, they have 3 days of tryouts, today and tomorrow, and then the final roster is selected, and then they start immediately with practice. And so this week is kind of weird because if the guys were guys who stayed in Tucson and are returning players, they probably haven't skated in a couple months. And you could tell that at least half of the guys on the ice last night had not skated in a while. You could tell the goaltenders hadn't taken shots in a little while. And it's going to take a week and a half, I'm going to guess, before guys really look like they look like. But we have Austin Wilson returning senior goaltender, and then 2 newcomers who are going to push him that are ready to play right now. They've played Canadian juniors at a high level, and they're very talented. There are NCAA Division I teams that would be very happy with this goaltending core. And so I'm fascinated to see, as everybody gets their legs under them, is Austin Wilson still the number 1 goaltender? Well, he's going to get pushed by these new guys. And of course, if you've been following the team and seen Austin Wilson play, you're rooting for him as a senior to keep that job and prove that he's the number 1 goaltender. And he really wants to prove that.
Okay, so now that we're moving, we addressed the goaltending. How about somebody on defense or forward, somebody who's returning? Do you have somebody who maybe was under the radar last year and you think, wow, they're just really going to, last year you were looking at them and think, wow, if they have another year of development, they're really going to break out. Do you have that underdog that we can root for?
That's fascinating because the kids really do develop so quickly in college from one year to another. So you can see the potential of a guy and it's really interesting to see what they're going to be like last year. I'm really excited about Manny Rowe, number 20. Rachel, you probably know him because of his incredible flow that he has. He has old-style hockey hair, and it looks great on him. Manny Rowe is a very athletic defenseman, really knows how to push the puck, has that defensive focus that the coach wants, and now he's a year older. I believe he was the newcomer of the year, rookie of the year for Arizona last year, and deservedly so. He's going to be an all-star at the ACHA level, and I think that's going to start this year. I think he's a really, really key returning player for this Wildcat squad.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely do know Manny Rowe and his flow. That rhymes. There was actually the team signing last year. I actually went there, and the first thing I said to him, I was like, I'm like, how long did it take for you to grow that out? That is incredible. Like, that is just true hockey flow. So,
the press release, and we're going to have a day of mourning because I mean it's just when he's skating around in warm-ups without his helmet on, and it's just falling behind him like he's King Arthur or something, and then he puts his helmet on and it's sticking out all over the place. Yeah, but there's going to be a team vote or a team revolt if he goes and cuts his hair.
I think me and Robbie can both agree, and I think hockey fans probably who just understand the culture of hockey can absolutely agree with that. And
hockey too. Guys are allowed to have personality. They're allowed to be individuals, and this is supposed to be fun, you know. So I mean, like the ASU weekend to end the season last year, these guys erupted with an emotion like a champagne bottle getting uncorked. They had it so pent up about ASU, about beating ASU, and then they do it at home in front of big crowds. You know, that's why I continue to love Arizona hockey. So, Rachel, you're a Roadrunners season ticket holder. Are you a U of A Wildcat ticket holder?
I'm actually not, because I will actually be covering them this year, so I am not going to be able to attend the many games as a fan.
Excuse? You didn't make. I was going to have to go to Manny and talk about that, but no, that's a good excuse. You're actually going to be covering them as media. That's good. Good for you.
Yes. So, sort of to connect the two ideas of the Tucson Roadrunners and the U of A hockey team, how do you think both of them have impacted the culture of Tucson? Personally, I think the Roadrunners coming here will almost make it a better environment for the U of A team, because maybe people aren't used to watching college hockey, so they're like, oh, let me go watch an AHL team that's a professional team, and now maybe they'll move into it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, the U of A hockey team, from a marketing standpoint, has really been deficient for a number of years. They haven't had competition in the marketplace, and I really don't think they've put the investment needed in the program. And it's one of the, so when I go out and talk to people, a lot of people don't know that U of A has a hockey team, and we have to fix that. And I think the administration really does want to address that. They're going to invest in this program, because the Roadrunners only help the U of A if the U of A can get out of the Tucson Convention Center. And what I mean by that is we need a smaller 2,500 seat kind of rink that could be a practice facility for the Roadrunners in the home of U of A hockey, so they're not competing for the same dates at the TCC. Last year and this year, and until the U of A can get out of the TCC, they have to play some 2 p.m. games because they just can't get enough weekend dates because the Roadrunners are there. And there's no, that makes it so difficult to break even financially when you play a third or a half of your season at 2 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. So the Roadrunners only help if they can get out of the TCC. You know, it's a 7,000 seat arena. It's expensive to rent and operate for U of A games. It's great when ASU is there, when the U of A plays an opponent that a big crowd comes for. But sometimes when the crowds are smaller, it becomes very financially difficult. Once they're in 2 separate buildings, though, then I think the organizations can really augment each other and really help each other, and they won't be competing for the exact same dollars on the same days.
So,
you need, folks, kids, my fellow alumni, you need to come to U of A hockey games. We need you there so that the program can survive and grow.
Absolutely. I have to say, though, at least maybe we can agree that we're in a better position than ASU is right now, because currently both believe their D1 and their ACHA team both play in Oceanside Arena, which is a very, very small little place.
I'll describe it a little differently. It's a dump. It's like 100 years old. I believe it was the first ice rink ever built in Phoenix more than 50 years ago. It's a dump. You know, they put a couple $100,000 into it to make it look better for the Division I team. But you're absolutely right. The NCAA team and the ACHA Division I and Division II teams, they all three play at Oceanside. It's got bleachers, aluminum bleachers that hold about 500 people. And, you know, in talking to the Division I coach up there, Greg Powers, Greg is such a long-time ASU hockey man. He's the goaltender who broke the streak of the U of A beating ASU at 57 or 58 games 20 years ago. So he's the one who stopped that streak, and now he's the head coach there. And, you know, he's talked to me about how if they had the Tucson Convention Center as their home, they'd be the #1 attendance team in the NCAAs, and I don't deny that. They've got the Division I NCAA program, and they don't have a building. So they got to get that done, you know. They got to get a 5,000-seat multi-use arena built there at ASU that women's basketball can play in, and volleyball can play in, and ice hockey can play in. But as you know, I mean, that takes, you know, I don't know, $250 million, I don't know, some incredible amount of money, and it's not on the drawing board right now. So until then, the finest college hockey venue is right here at the University of Arizona at the Tucson Convention Center. But even then, the U of A is in the same position as ASU. We need a building that we can call our own, that's a more modern building than Oceanside.
Now that ASU went D1 about 1 or 2 years ago, I believe it was the season before last, I think that brought up a lot of competition possibly between U of A and ASU, possibly for recruiting, because at one point they were on the same level, sort of going after the same players, and maybe now it's a little offset and ASU has more teams. How do you think that sort of changed the dynamic? Do you think U of A is going to be pushing even more to maybe, not at this point maybe go D1, but just try to get that new building? And what else are they going to try to do to make people want to come to U of A, make recruits come here?
Well, first of all, Coach Berman is confident that this is the best. This is Coach Berman's 4th year here. He says by far this is his best recruiting year, and they are able to get some really top-level recruits to come to the U of A. They've got, I believe, 3 guys who have transferred from NCAA teams to the University of Arizona to play here. So they are able to attract people here. The situation at ASU is kind of strange because, as you say, they have a Division I team there, and then they have 2 club teams. And I think at first thought, you think, well, there's no way the club teams can be good if you can play. You're playing for the Division I team. But there's so much ice available in the Phoenix area. They have so many rinks, and they have several decades now of youth programs that they've developed a lot of hockey talent in the Phoenix area. And those are the kids, local Arizona kids, who are playing on the ACHA teams now, and they have really good talent. This will be a very telling year, though, because all of the players that were part of that transition from the club team to the Division I team are all gone now. So this is an all-ACHA team. Will the talent level still be up to the level that they have been? This will be interesting to see what happens with that. But, yeah, that's a lot of ASU hockey teams playing out of one little 500-seat barn there at Oceanside.
Yeah. All right, Tim, I think we're just about to wrap this up. We really want to thank you again for calling into this show. We really appreciate it. Always good having another guy in here talking with hockey with us.
Well, Rob, if Rachel, have me on any time. We'll talk Roadrunners. We'll talk Wildcats. We'll talk the greatest game on earth on ice hockey.
All right. Thanks again, Tim. All right. Once again, that was Timothy Gasson, media director for the UA hockey team.
Probably one of the coolest guys I've met, honestly. Like.
Oh yeah, he's always a really nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, he gave me his phone number and he's like, you know, whenever you need anything, talk to me. I can get it done for you. And I'm like,
You really need people like that in the media, I think. Like, just generally in life, you want people to help you out and support you like that, but a guy to have that in the journalism world,
Oh yeah.
people like us, you know, those guys are rare, and there's a lot of people who help you, but guys like that are just
And
unbelievable.
not to mention is he's part of the group that's offering internships to people who trying to get in that field. So like you say, hey, you want to do play-by-play, we got an internship for you. You got to do social media, we got an internship for you. Be with the U of A hockey team, and we can get something done with you. And having something like that, that's really important.
Yeah, personally, I think it's much cooler too for him to be part of like the U of A than like ASU, because personally I considered going to ASU for their journalism program, and the big draw was that they had a D1 hockey team, and there was something like really cool to that, and I was like, maybe I can get an internship with them, or I could work with them, and then I just sort of was like, no, it's not the same environment. Him being here, he's sort of the embodiment of the entire Tucson culture, and the Tucson hockey culture especially, of where it's low key, it's nice. You feel like, oh man, I don't have to be like Rachel Nichols to get a job in sports. I can just be me. I have confidence in my abilities, and people like it.
Yeah, not to mention like the way he's out there, teaching you. Even you might not be, like I said, one of the interns that he has or whatever. You reach out to him, he will help you. I know sometime, actually it was the last game of the year, so it was that senior night year, and I was talking to Tim, like, Tim, I want to see what kind of interviews I can do. I want to make a really good package tonight. And he's like, find me after the game. I'll get you in the locker room, and we'll get you whatever interview you want.
Are you gonna bring up the really emotional interviews you did with
Oh
Berman
yeah,
and Toppy?
I had some pretty emotional interviews. If you don't know, I guess the most emotional one was with Coach Chad Berman after the game. It being senior night, I kind of had the idea. I was like, all right, let me talk to him about the seniors. So I'm like, hey, I know a lot of these seniors, the guys that you brought up, probably the guys you've experienced the longest so far in your 3-year coaching career. Tell me about Toppy Hogan and John Hogan and everybody that you've got a chance to really get to know. And his answer, he actually got emotional. He tried to fight back tears, and
personally, I feel the same way when I think about like Toppy Hogan and John Hogan. When I think about all of them, just like what they've done. I mean, I watched U of A hockey some last year, and it was just the culture they brought. I mean, it definitely is an emotional thing. As you were saying, especially for him, he brought them up.
He was the one that gave them the opportunity to be on the team and raised them from literally their first year all the way until their last, and saw them grow. And that's, as a coach, that's probably one of the most proudest moments you can have. And that's probably, that's why a coach like him would get emotional about that, especially with someone like Chad too, because he's also another one of the nicest guys that I've met.
Oh, absolutely. I've talked to him a couple times, and he's absolutely the nicest.
And I think in general, that's that U of A hockey community. You can reach out to anybody with them, and they're there, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, because the thing is they're not because of, as we've sort of mentioned before, there hasn't always been that culture of hockey in Tucson and all that. There hasn't been a ton of acceptance about it, so they aren't the first priority when covering U of A sports, or even covering sports generally here. So you get like men's basketball ahead of it, you get soccer ahead of it, you get pretty much everything ahead of it. So when you go and contact them and they're like, yo, greatest game on earth, I'm ready to cover you guys, they absolutely love it. They eat it up, and they deserve the coverage, honestly.
And I think the same goes for really most of the other sports at Arizona where no one really wants to pay attention to.
I think we have like a water polo team, tennis, golf even. Like
golf.
I'm covering golf, and it's like this year for the Daily Wildcat, and I understand I'm covering women's golf, so people are probably like anti that, but we have great players on the teams, and it's like you don't hear about that.
When it comes to track, I mean, I did a package for UATV, and I interviewed an Olympic athlete. I don't think some people knew that an Olympic athlete was on U of A's team. And
I didn't know that. Wow.
And so I was like, wow, this is awesome. And they still are very happy to talk to student media because, hey, students actually care about our team. And, I really think that's fantastic. Especially with hockey though, because
that's your thing.
That's,
this is definitely our thing.
Yeah,
so
that's our thing, and like, you know, I think there's even more of a connection because we love the sport, they love the sport, and you know, they can feel that when we're talking to them.
What's especially great is that these guys they're really genuine guys, because I will say this right now, I've thought about this before, but you see a lot of guys in like the NHL. I understand they've worked really hard and gotten there, but they are entitled. They are like, oh, you better pay me $8 million, even though I got, you know, less than, you know, I'm not worth
You're
that
really
much.
on that one.
Yeah, so like, oh, I scored 15 goals. Guess what? $8 million, please. Or it's something like that. They're definitely entitled to it, and there's like problems with. They're like, we don't want to go to the All-Star game. It's like, no, you do that for the fans. Like, suck it up and go do it for the fans, kind of thing.
And meanwhile, last week, I'm just walking down University. Toppy Hogan just walks up to me. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" Recognizes who I am and starts talking. We just have a good conversation.
Exactly. They're just genuine guys. They're here. We've mentioned this lots of times just in conversation with each other, that these are not scholarship players. These are players who are here to get an education, play the game. So they're out studying, they're out working, they're out being normal college kids. So they're very relatable, and you can just talk to them on a personal level.
Absolutely. Anyways, we're probably going to take just one really quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to talk about some really interesting news that I saw from coming out of the National Hockey League just yesterday.
And it's not about entitled players.
And it's not about entitled players. It's about entitled owners.
Ooh, same.